Hey, it's Jeff Zito, and thanks for checking out another episode of the Celebrity Jobber Podcast. All our past guests are up on celebrityjobber.com, where we ask these celebrities about what their first job was, before they were famous. Sometimes they even had a whole other career, and they were just one big break away from becoming who they are, what they're famous for, why we know them. My guest this week was the star of the number one sitcom in the country back in 1975, One Day at a Time. Yeah, Ms. Romano, Snyder. Valerie Bertinelli played the role of Barbara. I had a crush on her. Most guys did back then. She was also married to the very famous guitarist from Van Halen, Eddie Van Halen. And a little bit of a career shift for Valerie, which we're going to talk about right here on Celebrity Jobber.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, give a 5-star rating, and leave a review. Check out all our past episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you pod. What if these celebrities weren't famous? What would they have become? What was their first job? We're about to find out.
Hey, Valerie.
Hello.
How are you?
How you doing?
Yeah, I'm glad to be talking to you. I'm so interested in hearing about some of the new things that you're working on. But I got to just mention, I feel sorry for your son, Wolfgang, as I talked to him not too long ago. He's such a nice kid. But
oh, you did?
I did, yeah. Maybe about a year or so ago, I talked to him. He's what a good job you guys did of raising that kid.
I cannot take credit. He is the man he is because he happens to be just a really good, sweet, kind soul.
But I got to tell you, Valerie, I feel sorry for him because he's got creepy guys like me probably coming up to him every day telling him that they had a crush on his mom way back when. So,
yeah, I'm sure he must be tired of hearing of that. But I'm not tired of hearing it.
Right. Well, Valerie, I had a major crush on you when Ms. Romano, in the Ms. Romano days. So it's so good to be talking to you.
Thank you so much. Same here. It's nice to be talking to you as well.
Oh, man, you're too nice. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through this. Can you tell me a little bit about growing up? You grew up in Delaware, correct?
I was born in Wilmington, raised in Claymont and Clarkston, Michigan, and Oklahoma City, and California, and Louisiana.
Oh, my God. So you moved around. Tell me when acting kind of entered your life. Like, what age were you?
About 11, 12, and I started going up for commercials. I got quite a few commercials. It took me a long time to get my first job, so it was a little depressing, and it can really knock on your self-esteem. I think I'm still trying to recover at this age. And then I got One Day at a Time right when I had just barely turned 15.
What was your very first job? Was it, first, two-part question, first job in acting, first job, period?
My first job was in acting, and it was for a commercial for JCPenney's, an Easter commercial, as a matter of fact.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So that was your very first job? You were never a babysitter or cut grass?
Oh, no, you're right. No, I was a babysitter for the family a block away from me, and I would babysit for them.
Okay. But acting, that was your first real paycheck?
It was? Well, besides the babysitting, yes.
And how old were you?
I was in cash.
Cash is king, but not anymore.
Yeah, right. I was 12 when I did the commercial for JCPenney. Was I 12 or was I 13? I don't remember. I don't remember. It's a long time ago. That's all I can tell you.
So, Valerie, were your parents in show business and or did they have just regular jobs?
No, regular jobs. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. That was a hard enough job, God knows, for 4 kids, cooking every meal. And my dad worked for General Motors. So that's why we moved around a lot. Okay,
I got it. So you're moving around a lot, and you said you got your gig for, One Day at a Time. Would you consider that being your big break?
Oh, for sure. Come on. I'm working for Norman Lear. Yeah, that was at the height of Norman's success and and I am so grateful that Norman was my mentor because there's not a lot of great mentors out there or weren't in Hollywood at the time and maybe aren't now. I don't know. But I was protected by him and by Bonnie and by Pat Harrington, and I will be forever grateful that I had a somewhat decent childhood for being a child actor because of them.
Yeah, I was going to say because your co-star on the show, she didn't have as good of a childhood as you did. She had a little bit of a rougher road. And talking about Mackenzie Phillips, obviously, but what caused you to kind of...
She was protected. She was protected by Norman as well, but the experiences that she had before then and with her family kind of made Mac had to work harder to become the human being she is today. And today she's just an absolutely magical, sweet, kind woman. I still talk to her, and I love her dearly.
So you think they kept an eye on you, though, as far as they forbade you to sway and get in any kind of trouble?
I think, yes, very much so. I had, between being on the set with all the people protecting me and then my parents as well. Yeah, I had somewhat normal, if you can call being on, the biggest show on television being normal.
Right. I find it so interesting, Valerie, that you're a successful actress and, it's years down the road, but still there's like a shift in your, career, and you start entering the world of cooking. And tell me about your love of cooking and how you kind of shifted gears in your career, because it's kind of hard to be successful at two different things, don't you think?
Absolutely, but I'm incredibly lucky. But I've always loved cooking. It's always been a big part of my life from a very young age. I never really thought that I was good enough to write a cookbook, but I kind of got over that. And I feel like my third cookbook now, Indulge, it benefits from everything that I've learned in, all these decades. And that's why I'm so happy to share it with everybody. I didn't purposely take this. Like the roads that I get to walk on, they kind of disappear before me, and I don't realize they're going to be as important as they are, and then they become being an important part of my life. So I'm just taking a chance and just trying to be as authentic and live my life in the best way that I can. And I'm incredibly grateful for the chances that I get to do things that I love.
And Valerie, did you go to college at all?
I went to the college of one day at a time.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's pretty. That's probably you probably learned more on the set there than you would.
I did learn a lot.
Can you tell me how schooling was for you, being a minor, and how difficult that was keeping up with school while you were acting?
They have it set up in a way that you have 3 hours of school in the 8 hours, and you get to work the other. So they just know that they have to set it up around us and our schedule, and it works out pretty well. And Gladys Hirsch, who was our teacher all that time, she was an amazing teacher, and I will again be forever grateful for her.
Can you tell me a little bit about what life was like? It seemed like you had a very close relationship with your husband or ex-husband, Eddie Van Halen. Can you tell me about how life was like when you and him both at the same kind of time were both excelling in your careers? Was it a hectic life?
Yes, it was a very hectic life for two very young people. That it was quite a challenge, and between all of the issues that we had and the traumas that Ed and I have experienced separately in our childhoods and together, I think it was a very challenging time. I'm grateful that that I was able to, and Ed and I were able to have Wolfie, because he is like a little shining light of the good that came from that, because there was a lot of stressful and uncomfortable things that also came from that relationship.
Could you tell me, or people listening, one of the great things about Eddie? Can you tell me, is there a specific thing that he was just that people would be surprised to hear about him?
He had a very kind heart, and he had never really dealt with all the trauma that he had experienced in his life, which was really kind of devastating to see. And I can look back at that now and see, but as a young woman, I was more focused on, well, what about me? Why can't you quit drinking and drugs for me? And it's not about that. It's about the toolbox that he had to reach into, which was drugs and alcohol. And he knew he was destroying his life as well. But you can't fix somebody else. You can only fix yourself. And I think that's why, inevitably he was able to come to some sort of peace before he died and make peace with everything. So I'm grateful for that.
And your son, Wolfgang, again, what a talented musician and what a nice kid. Again, I was just floored by how polite and engaging he was and honest. And
he's a good one.
He really is.
Yeah.
He's
it's so funny, too, because I think of him as a kid as well, but he's a 33-year-old adult. But, he'll always be my little baby.
Valerie, when you're old like me, 33 is just a kid, you know?
Yes, exactly.
I'm so excited to pick up this cookbook because one of the biggest things in my life, my wife will always be like, what do you want for dinner? I've got no idea. And it's just maybe sometimes a little sauce or a little this or a little that completely can change what you're going to eat for dinner or something basic.
For sure. Yeah. There's all kinds of tips and tricks and things you can do to, tickle your taste buds.
And it's called Indulge, Delicious and Decadent Dishes to Enjoy and Share, coming out soon. Valerie Bertinelli, thank you so much. It was a real pleasure talking to you. Thanks for putting up with my stammering, but got through it. So.
Oh, no. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Have a great day.
You too.
So she did some unpacking there, didn't she, between her relationship with Eddie Van Halen. She was young at the time. He was young at the time. He had a, rock and roll lifestyle, substance abuse. She was not in that world, even though she was a child actor, and you hear the horror stories about child actors. It was her family and her castmates that kept her kind of on the straight and narrow. Her mentor, Norman Lear, very famous sitcom producer at that time in the mid-'70s, kept Valerie on track. Valerie's family, not in show business. They were quote-unquote regular people. She said her mom was a stay-at-home mom, and that kept her pretty busy with 4 kids. And her dad worked for GM, which caused the family to move around a little bit. Never went to college. She said her schooling was on the set of One Day at a Time, which so happened to be also her big break, playing the role of Barbara. Pretty sure every guy back then had a crush on her. I found it really interesting how someone so successful in one career can shift and be successful in another career, like Valerie and her cooking career. She's got cooking shows. She wrote a bunch of cookbooks, and she said she just kind of stumbled into it, which I'm sure is kind of easy when you are Valerie Bertinelli. Now, her first job, even though she said it was probably babysitting the neighbor down the street's kid, her first job was acting. She was in a commercial for JCPenney's when she was about 12 or 13 years old. So her first job was actually in show business, which I thought was pretty cool. And then getting back to her relationship with Eddie Van Halen, she talked about how he had a kind heart. And, even though it was a tough go, for 2 young people and him and his substance abuse problems, they made it work for a while. And the shining light between them, their son, Wolfgang Van Halen, who, by the way, happens to be a pretty successful musician himself with his band Mammoth WVH. She definitely seems like such a sweet person, just kind of how she comes across on TV, which is pretty cool. She's a great guest for sure. And you can check out a lot of past great guests up on celebrityjobber.com. Yeah, they're all up there. This podcast streaming on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. I ask you to please subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, and leave a review. Check out the YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/the@celebrityjobber. And you can also follow on Instagram, Celebrity Jobber Podcast. So that's another one in the books for this week. We're actually closing in on episode 100, a milestone for the Celebrity Jobber Podcast, if you will. Thank you so much for listening. Until next week, I'm Jeff Zito.